Good evening. We're going to call to order the Finance Committee meeting for December the 6th, the year 2021. We will start out with invocation by Councilor Tracy McGee, followed by the flag salute. If you'll stand, please.
Let us bow our hearts for a moment of prayer. Thanking our Heavenly Father, Yahweh, for this wonderful day. We thank Him for His grace and for His mercy. We ask Him that He give us understanding as we take on the business of the city. And all these many blessings we ask in His only begotten Son, Yahshua Messiah. Let us say hallelujah.
Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Finance Committee agenda, item number 1, please.
Consider approval of Finance Committee minutes of November 15th, 2021, or take other necessary action.
Reviewing the minutes, are there any corrections or additions to our minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve our minutes. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hoos.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Item number 1 passes. Item number 2, please.
Consider approval of amending the City of Muskogee, Oklahoma municipal budget for fiscal year 2021-2022, providing for additional revenues to be transferred to the Special Project Fund in which to pledge said revenues, and further amending the fiscal year 2022 general fund budget, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. What we have today is a review of some things we talked about at the retreat. We've incorporated feedback since then, and we're looking for direction as we go to next week's council meeting to finalize these important things as we get towards the end of the calendar year and as we get towards some important deadlines with the state regarding the American Rescue Plan funding that they have. And so the agenda item you have here is dealing with two things. One is our regular topic that we do at this time of year, every year. We look at how we did last year financially. Our fiscal year ends June 30th, and we make adjustments through an ordinance that you all have passed and allocate that money based off your priorities at this time. And then secondly, this year we do have the American Rescue Plan funds. And so what we're looking at there is how do we allocate the $3.2 million that we've already received, and how do we plan and look ahead to the next round of money that we should get about this time next year. And then also I'll talk briefly that you all have created a transition of economic development and civic center to the MRA, and so we are looking forward to that, and this is we'll discuss that briefly about what those budget amendments look like. So real quickly, this time of year we do see how our financial performance does compared to last year. We always want that blue line to be above the red line. We want to spend less money than we take in. That allows us to keep our reserves in a good spot for when we have emergencies, in which we know in the last year we've had several, and we've been able to allocate those funds. And then also it lets us reallocate money in our general fund, in a special projects fund actually, that you approve for the priorities that you have identified. And so this process was established by ordinance for two purposes, again, to fund the reserve for emergencies and to fund one-time projects that fit the strategic plan. So when we started this, our reserve was about 10%. You see that we grew it very quickly over 3 years' time. But you may have noticed in that time frame, we've also had some things happen. We had a 500-year flood in 2019. We've had COVID-19. We've had a building collapse. We've had a major winter storm last year, and we spent $1 million on emergency road repairs. A lot of other cities couldn't do that. So that's taken our reserve fund down to 13% as of today, and that dollar amount is about $4.8 million. The good news is that our revenue over expenses for the last year was about $1.9 million, and so the allocation required by the ordinance, since we are at less than 20%, we take 75% of those revenues and put that towards our reserves to get our numbers back up towards our goal of 20 to 30%. So that's that $1.4 million number you see towards the bottom, and that would take the reserve fund or a stabilization fund to $6.2 million, or about 17%. So part of the reason that we've gotten the number has gone down is we've spent money on these projects, and there's more money to come in some projects. So one of the reasons we've got that red reserve number is that it's going to go up and down. We may have expenditures that are still to come on some of these projects, and here are things that we know about. Obligations to the reserve fund, but also over time we do expect to get reimbursement, not 100% reimbursement, but reimbursement from insurance and from FEMA for up to 75% of these expenses. So really we have what could be termed a cash flow analysis. Puts us where even with the money coming in, we just have about 3% of our reserve uncommitted at this time. And so that's why it's very wise that the council has put this policy in place in the past, that we have built up our reserves, because if we hadn't, we would be in trouble right now. We would not have been able to do some of the things that we've done just in the last year, as far especially as the emergency street repairs. And we'd be having to try and cope with these FEMA emergencies without the money needed, because we have to front the money and FEMA pays us back eventually. So I want to commend the council for putting this policy in place. And so kind of our effective reserve is that 3.61, but we know that number is going to go up and down too as we get reimbursed. So then again, our best practice is 20% to 30% of our general fund in a reserve. Right now, after we follow the ordinance, we'll be at about 16.95%, knowing that some of that is already committed. So that is the looking backwards part. This is the looking forwards part, where we take the strategic priorities that the council has put together over the years and said, these are our priorities. If we have money, this is where we want to spend it in these areas. And so the balance, the other 25% of that $1.9 million is this $484,996. And so based off conversations that we've had with the council over the past year, through the budgeting process, through the retreat, these are areas that we see as priority areas, and these are dollar amounts that fit within that $484,996 amount. So we've talked about Hatbox Field sports improvements. You remember Mr. Ewan came before you last month and said, here are the things that we need to do. We have funding for a lot of those, but this is about the dollar amount that we didn't have money to do. So this is a way to get those things done and hopefully get them done in time for spring ball. Security cameras is an ongoing project. Country Club in Shawnee, again, in the last month or so, you've heard we've expanded that project with the help of ODOT. But Mr. Stewart said, hey, we do have some, since we've expanded the project, it does have some funding issues. This is a way to address some of that. This council has established a 150th birthday committee for the city, with the 150th birthday being just a few weeks away on January 1st. And this gives us a budget to have events. This is not for one event. It's for to work in partnership with the tourism allocation that they have for some of these events, to put on events all year long. And police vehicles, we've got an issue where some of their vehicles are aging. The usual replacement cycle is going well, but we've got a couple that we need to try and speed up the process due to their age and mileage. And so this helps us address that issue. So this is our special project fund allocation draft for Finance Committee feedback and approval. Again, we've talked about it some in various forums, including the retreat, about our priorities. So this is something that we'll be looking for guidance on today as we move forward. Again, this is committee, and then next week we'll have the opportunity to approve that. In partnership, we're also looking at American Rescue Plan, and again, these are things we've talked about before. I won't belabor all of the various things, but there's 4 handouts that you've been given that have several different projects on them. And so I will cover them very briefly, but just know that there's $6.4 million for Muskogee. We're going to get $3.2 million this year. We already have it, and we'll need a budget modification as part of this process to say, what do we want to do with the money that we already have? and then we want to look to the future and project what do we want to do with the remainder of the money. And so we're going to take a long-term look at what those are. We have about 5 or 6 years until the end of 2026, I believe, to spend the money. But this is an opportunity for us to allocate along the lines of our strategic priorities. So the first handout is really an analysis of how, based off the feedback the council's given, that we should spend that $6.4 million. Includes premium pay for essential city workers at $1,000 a year for the next 2 years. That is roughly an $800,000 project. Reimburses the city for sick time and medical costs that the city has incurred directly related to COVID. Includes money to transfer to the Muskogee County EMS to help them with their ambulance shortfall that they're having right now. It's got some approved projects, including the water and sewer infrastructure project that this body has already approved. It has housing infrastructure money. Has including money for infrastructure for Southwest Zone projects for economic development. We've talked about our water meter project. We've done about half of our water meters at the city. This will go a long way to getting the other half funded. And then a couple of things that we've added since the retreat. Master wastewater and drinking water plans are a part of this. And then there is a lost revenue component that OMLs help us calculate. That will allow us to reimburse the general fund for further appropriation at a later date by the City Council. So that's handout A. Handout B is we'd ask for your approval to submit these grants to the state for money, to ask them to use their rescue plan money. And we would not necessarily need to use our rescue plan money. We have other city funding identified for all of these projects. Including RV sewer lines at Hatbox, Grandview Park, Hatbox Baseball, bathrooms that are already underway, Hatbox Arena parking, which is underway, Martin Luther King Center project, Fire Station number 5 construction, Smith Ferry Road infrastructure improvements, water park improvements, and sewer plant improvements. So all of these are projects that we are in the works and planning on doing anyway. So we're asking the state if they can help us stretch our money. If the state can help us, these are all projects that fit in that category. So we would ask for your approval to submit these as state grants. Likewise on handout C, we would like to submit these to the state. But these we do not necessarily have matching money to do, and these are categories that are less likely to be funded according to our consultants at OML, but they're worth asking because if they are going to fund this kind of project, we want them to fund it in Muskogee. The fourth handout is a partnership handout. We've been in discussions with the county about potential projects that they may be willing to use some of their rescue plan money and that we can apply to the state. And so you see those are mainly water related. It also includes the USS Batfish and trying to get that moved. So all of these projects are ones that we do also want to submit to the state. And if we do, we would like to ask the City of Muskogee Foundation to assist us with a further match. We've showed you a whole bunch of other projects that we put city money towards as match, and these City of Muskogee, we're asking the council to let us apply to the City of Muskogee Foundation for a $3 million grant to apply as a match to these projects as well, and that will allow us to have a better chance of getting that state money again. If we do these projects with that $3 million, if the foundation is willing to match, the total might be close to $39 million of impact, not just impact, actual spending, $36 million plus coming in from the state and federal government with those $3 million from the foundation. So that's the direction that we have from you so far, and that's why we're having this committee meeting today is for feedback, discussion, as we look forward to next week, and then being able to, by the end of after next week, move forward with projects to submit to the state, because our deadline is tentative deadline. The state said it's better. We really need the projects in before the end of the year, after the first of the year, they may start evaluating them and awarding them. So the last thing that I have on this topic in particular is the actual specific budget amendment, which you see on the screen, this is how we would propose to allocate among all those projects that are on that handout A, about how to spend the money the first year. And we have that 3.2 approximately, and this would be the allocation that is up to the council, again, which projects we do and which ones are in the first year versus second. But based off the feedback that we've gotten so far, this would be a representation of that. So that being said, I'll pause there regarding Special Projects Fund and Rescue Plan and feedback, because we want to bring, if there's any changes we need to make before next week when we come to City Council, we'd like to hear that feedback now, and because we want to make sure we're bringing something on the 13th that looks good to you and lets us get these projects underway.
Yes.
Chair, can I have the floor? I know we've had some conversations on increasing the essential pay, maybe from what was originally proposed here. Can we move forward so we can have additional conversations this week? Can we move forward with that recommendation?
Mr. Tucker?
You certainly can. Since we're in committee, you can certainly move forward to City Council with that recommendation, or you can have the discussion now, however you choose, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So Jamie's proposing that we take no action tonight, but we will entertain any questions from Mr. Miller or any feedback at this time that any councilors may want to provide.
Mr. Chair, I agree with Councilor Stout. I think that'll give us time to probably have more informed questions, if any arise, that we just move forward without action.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Is that okay with
If
everyone?
that's the will of the body.
So,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we'd prefer that be done by motion, because generally, since we're in committee, if no action is taken, the item dies.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that it moves.
No, we don't want it to die.
Right, no,
We don't want it
we
to
need
die.
So that's why I'm suggesting we have
Yes.
a motion so that we do have a document that's moving forward.
Thank you.
I put that in a form of a motion.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second that we move this forward to next week's City Council agenda. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hoos.
yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
All right. Item number 2 will be moved. Item number 3, please.
Consider approval of the operations of the Economic Development Fund and the Civic Center Fund to the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller?
Yes, so this is an item just for reference at this point. Again, we're looking to do a budget amendment to fulfill the wishes that you've put forward as far as moving the economic development budget to MRA, moving the Civic Center budget to MRA. Jean Kingston is here. She's got a couple of points of clarification that she'd like to make as well as we look at this. Really, again, not necessarily needing a vote today, but making sure you have the basics and be ready for next week being able to implement.
Mr. Chairman of Committee, I just wanted to point out that on the attachments, the budget amendment for the Civic Center, it references transfer to economic development, and that should be Muskogee Redevelopment Authority. And that'll be changed for next Monday night. Also, the numbers on the attachments will change slightly because until council approves this transfer of operations, we are continuing to process invoices and make deposits, especially from the Civic Center. So the numbers will change slightly as of next Monday night, and the resolution will reflect that the transfers will be for the current balances in these accounts.
Thank you.
So again, we'd just like to bring this forward next week. You can approve, or you can just move it forward without recommendation. Either way is fine.
So, Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes.
I think based on what Ms. Kingston has just stated to us, I'm sure that we would rather approve the numbers as they would be. And so, if it's the pleasure of the body, I'm gonna make a motion that we move forward without recommendation.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous,
Yes.
Tracy McGee,
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan,
Yes.
Alex Reynolds, Evelyn Hibbs,
Yes.
Jamie Stout,
Yes.
Ivory Van,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed,
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Item number 3 is moving forward to the next week's agenda. Item number 4, please.
Consider approval of Resolution Number 2879, amending Appendix A of the Muskogee City Code pertaining to animal regulation fees and spay and neuter assistance program fees and charges, or take other necessary action.
Ms. Weezy?
Good evening. Mr. Evans was not available this evening, so I'll cover this item. The City of Muskogee Animal Shelter is seeking to amend the schedule of fees and charges in Appendix A relating to animal regulations and the Spay and Neuter Assistance Program, which recently kicked off this fall. So this is really just procedural because there are fees and costs associated to that new program, and they need to be listed as we are starting to charge those. And staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Move for approval?
Have a motion and a second to approve this item. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Ms. Sweezy, what I think the body would like to know is what fees are different than what we were already doing.
So one example is the microchipping. We'll be microchipping any animal that's spay or neutered. So you'll see that on the your packet had the handout with the new fees. There's 2 different boxes. So towards the end of that first box, you'll see the microchipping and the paid euthanasia fee. And then the second full box has the full list of new fees, all the way down through the types of medicine used.
So everything in the first box we've already been doing.
Yes.
Those are the fees we've already been assessing. And in the second box, all of those fees are new.
Yes, I believe so. Plus the microchip on the top box.
Okay. I think, well, if the body has full clarity, I'm fine moving forward. I just want to be sure that we all understand what the new fees actually are versus what we were doing before. So we were doing a kennel fee for $100, all this other stuff is fine. I just want to be absolutely sure before I vote yes. I don't know if I'm sure. Are we sure?
Was there an increase or a decrease, or the prices kind of stayed the same?
There's no increases. These are just the new fees we're adding for the new program.
So the microchipping fee is the only new fee.
Public program, the public
I'm sorry.
assistance program,
So the microchipping fee is the only new fee,
on the top box.
and everything else is what we've already been doing.
Yes.
Okay. And the only reason I ask that is because we've been making a big push about the services we're gonna offer the residents at no cost. I wanna be sure we're not trying to make up those costs on the back end.
So we've got the 50% fees that we'll charge for the residents that don't qualify for the full assistance. The fees on this list won't be charged to the people that fully qualify for the full 100% program.
Okay. Is that written out someplace?
I believe it was in the packet the last time the program was approved a couple of weeks ago.
Mayor, this does not change the free and the 50% ordinance that you've already passed. This just sets the fees for what those would be if they're not free or 50%.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. So we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous,
Yes.
Tracy McGee,
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan,
Yes.
Alex Reynolds,
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs,
Yes.
Jamie Stout,
Yes.
Ivory Van,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed,
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Item number 4 passes. Item number 5, please.
Consider approval to purchase a Case DV23E tandem vibratory roller from the OCT Equipment LLC in the amount of $40,552.05 as per state contract, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes, Chairman and Committee, this item is a budgeted item for the Public Works Street Department Division. The item that we're asking approval on is $40,552.05. This is $5,000 under what we had actually budgeted. This is a state contract bid or purchase. This is for a tandem vibratory roller, and it's a roller they use in the street department for patching. This is going to replace a vibratory roller that is 25 years old, so it is very much needed. This, again, was budgeted in capital outlay. Again, it's under budget, and we do recommend the approval. And by the way, there was a picture of this on the spec sheet that was in your packet, if you want to take a look at it.
Thank you, Mike. I move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve this agenda item. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
the question I have is one enough, or do we need two?
So, Mayor, we have several. So we have all different sizes. This is just replacing one to keep the fleet in operation, so this is adequate.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
good
Mr.
question.
All right. Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Item number 5 passes. Item number 6.
Consider approval of purchase of a Case 570N EP tractor loader from OCT Equipment LLC in the amount of $94,598.48 per state contract, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes, Chairman and Committee, again, this is another item that is budgeted in our capital outlay. This item actually is $5,000 over, so if you'll remember, I just stated the last one was $5,000 under, so we're staying pretty much on budget. Both of these are coming from OCT Equipment, which is the Case dealer. This is a tractor loader that is going to actually replace a 1999 model Caterpillar backhoe. It is very much needed. Again, the spec sheet is in your packet. There's a picture of it if you want to see what it actually looks like. But this is a loader that we use, what we call a stock loader. It basically sits down at the yard and loads gravel into the dump trucks as they need throughout the day. Occasionally it goes out on the street, but basically it's a stock loader. We recommend approval, and by the way, this was approved at the purchasing committee earlier, and I'll answer any of your questions.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve this agenda item. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous. Yes. Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Item number 6 passes. Item number 7, please.
Consider approval to authorize the city manager to accept the airport rescue grant offer, grant number 3-40-0062-016-2022, in the amount of $32,000 for the Muskogee Davis Regional Airport, pending approval of the airport board, or take other necessary action.
Drew.
Good evening, Chairman and Committee. So this airport rescue grant is actually an American Rescue Plan grant. It did not come through the city channels because the money was given directly to the Federal Aviation Administration to be divvied up however they saw fit to airports. Our portion of that is $32,000 coming through the FAA's normal grant channels, which is, again, why it's not included in that other packet. The money has not yet been budgeted for, but we have, many needs such as capital improvement, et cetera, that we can use this for regular operations, COVID relief, et cetera. Staff recommends approval, and I will answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thanks. I move for approval.
Second.
So if I may, we'd like the approved committee based on, subsequent to airport board approval later this week as well.
I add that to motion.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Tracy Hous. Yes. Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Item number 7 passes, and with that passing, our final item of the Finance Committee.
Okay, we will now call to order the Public Works meeting of December 6, 2021. Item number 1, please.
Consider approval of Public Works Committee minutes of November 15th, 2021, or take other necessary action.
Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes?
Move for approval?
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Tracy Hoos.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
And the item passes. Item number 2.
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of Ordinance 4137A to close the 20-foot wide alley located within Block 276, Muskogee Original Town Site, more particularly described in the ordinance, providing for severability and setting an effective date.
We will now open the public hearing. Ms. Ross?
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. The applicant, Antonio Parada, is requesting approval to close the 20-foot wide alley that is lying between lots 4, 5, and 6 in Block 276 in the Muskogee Original Town Site. The alley is located between North 5th and Altamont Street, north of Tower Hill Boulevard. The alley closure is being requested to allow the property owner to vacate the alley and then consolidate a part of Lot 6 and Lot 4 in order to construct a garage building on Lot 4. There are no utilities located within the alley, proposed to be closed. Subdivision Review Committee reviewed the request and recommended approval. Notices have been sent to the abutting property owners as required and published in the paper 20 days prior to the public hearing. The next public hearing will be City Council December 13th. Staff does recommend approval, and Planning Commission also recommended approval this morning.
No one has signed up to speak for this, so we will close the public hearing. Is there any council discussion?
Move for approval?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Tracy Hoos.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
And the item passes. Item number 3.
Hold a public hearing and take action on the approval of ordinance number 4141A to rezone approximately 23 acres, being more particularly described in the ordinance from R1 single-family residential to R5 mobile home, and if approved, authorize staff to revise the official zoning map of the city to reflect said change or take other necessary action.
Ms. Ross?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Committee. The applicant, Ashley Campbell, has withdrawn her request, and she's going to research other options.
Okay, we did have 3 local people sign up to speak. Do you all still wish to speak since this item has been pulled?
Hallelujah works.
So Roy, do we need to have a motion and a second on this since it's pulled?
No. You'll just take no action because the applicant has withdrawn it.
Okay.
And that way, if she ever does re-urge, then the publication and notice to the property owners will be again submitted, and publication will occur. So there'll be no action on this.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Item number 4.
Consider approval of ordinance number 4146A of the City of Muskogee, Oklahoma, amending Chapter 78, Traffic and Vehicles by adding Article 22, Electrical Scooters, Sections 78-740 Definitions, 78-741 Regulations of Use of Electrical Scooters, 78-742 Registration, Inspection, and Permits of Commercial Electrical Scooters, Section 78-743 Rules of the Road, Section 78-744 Parking, Section 78-745 Driving, generally, Section 78-746 Penalty by providing for codification, repeal or severability, and setting an effective date, or take other necessary action.
Mayor Coleman?
To the members of the committee, several months back, we began having conversations about a downtown revitalization grant. part of that conversation involved us investigating the possibility of having scooters in our downtown area. And so at that time, I urged staff to explore what those opportunities would look like for us as a city. If you've gone to Stillwater, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, or Norman, and you've gone through their downtown, for example, you would see that those cities have had huge successes with their population in terms of deploying scooters into their downtown area. And so one of the things that we've always talked about as a committee and a council is that we wanted to be certain that we had a complete city, which means we need to be able to live, work, and play. This certainly falls under the play area and the quality of life. We'll be giving our residents an opportunity to enjoy not only our downtown, but our other parts of the city with scooters. To that end, we have an ordinance that does not only address the bird scooters being downtown, but the ordinance addresses scooters in general, so that we may have a simplistic yet clear to understand policy through the ordinance that explains how the scooters are to be parked, how the scooters are to be utilized. Therefore, we've asked Ms. Katrina Boldenhammer if she would come to explain the ordinance in some detail. At the end of that explanation, I want to say to her and Mr. Tucker, I will be asking that we ask staff to come back as part of the presentation on next week to have some recommendation to us on where the bird scooters may be downtown, because I think that's a separate item. We're contracting with Bird to put scooters downtown, but this ordinance explains how scooters are to be used citywide, which includes downtown. So I'm going to ask Ms. Boldenhammer if she will come to the microphone at this time. I'll say to the members of the committee, this is our new staff attorney in the city attorney's office. I think this is our first presentation to us as a committee, and so we want to be kind to her.
I appreciate it.
Allow her to make her explanations and then ask any questions appropriately. So Ms. Boldenhammer.
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair and committee members, this is an ordinance. It's ordinance number 4146A. We're requesting that you adopt this to the City Code of Ordinances of Muskogee, Oklahoma. We also have a separate agenda item, which is Regulation 2883, which will be presented later. It's a separate agenda item. And what this does is this new ordinance regulates electrical scooters. It regulates commercial scooters and privately owned scooters. It allows for the inspection and permitting of commercial scooters, not privately owned. So it's a new, fun, alternative form of transportation, something that the other cities are all using and experiencing a lot of growth in their downtown areas. This encourages downtown shopping, the way the ordinance is set up. It also encourages trail exploration, and it's a lot of fun for riders. People can use it for short-term transportation. For instance, if they want to go shopping and then bring something home that's close by, they can use a scooter for that. Under the city ordinances, the rules and regulations apply to commercial and personal scooters. However, only commercially owned and leased electrical scooters are subject to permits and inspections. The city ordinances, again, do apply to personal and commercial scooters. Electrical scooters, for instance, are not allowed on state highways. That's prohibited. Electrical scooters may ride in bike lanes and on paths and the city trails. Electrical scooters may be ridden on roadways and streets with a posted speed limit of 25 miles an hour or less. Electrical scooters must give right-of-way to pedestrians and persons in wheelchairs, and they must be ridden close to the curb and comply with all state, county, and city laws. In addition, we have in our ordinance, there's only one rider per scooter, so we're trying to keep the city safe and the citizens safe. The riders cannot carry packages unless they can keep at least one hand on the handlebars at all times. My experience in Tulsa with scooters is they loop the bag over the handlebars and keep both hands on, but most of the cities that I've researched have required that at least one hand be on the scooter handlebars at all times. Now, when a scooter is going across the street, the rider is required to get off and walk the scooter. That way we don't have scooters ripping back and forth across crosswalks and endangering our citizens. Riders are in all areas prohibited from racing, and all electrical scooters must be parked according to the new city ordinances. Maybe I'll get the next slide. As far as commercial scooters, they're easy to use, easy to park, and easy to pay. So when we get to the provision in the contract with, for instance, Bird Scooters, they have you download an app if you're a rider. You have to follow certain safety guidelines. There's some mini lessons that they give you. You pay, park, everything is done through the app. And it's easy to read, easy to manage. They have a 24/7 hotline for customer service. And when they park, this is something that cities originally had problems with, was where they park the scooters. Well, now on these apps, you have to take a photo of where you park and shoot that in on the app so that the scooter company knows where the bike is. And then in our ordinances, we also have rules and regulations as to parking, abandoned scooters, scooters that are left in roadways, and rules and regulations that apply to that. We do recommend approval of the adoption of these ordinances, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
And Mr. Tucker, you'll have to help me navigate, because in the motion to approve, I also want us to be certain that we look at where we're going to allow the bird scooters to be downtown.
Sure. And so I think, Mayor, for purposes of that, when we're talking about both the commercial and the personal scooters, what you're talking about is limiting where commercial scooters can be, and that's in the downtown area.
Yes.
And so, and I think I understand that, and we will need to make a modification to the proposed ordinance before it comes up next week to incorporate that, because right now there is no limitation. But as you surmised, most cities restrict them to downtown. Now, Norman is the exception, but that is probably because it is a very busy college town, so they're used in a broader area. But we will certainly take that direction, and so I think for purposes of the proposed motion would be to recommend approval subject to modifying the ordinance to limit commercial scooters to the downtown area.
So moved.
I do have a question. If you want me to do it now or when you finish with your motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Okay, thank you. I apologize. I've been in Muskogee probably most of my life, so I'm kind of new to this scooter thing, and I apologize for that. So I have some questions that may kind of seem off. Now, the scooter use, is it for sidewalks or are we talking about in the streets?
Well, the downtown scooters, I think, will have certain restrictions if we restrict the commercial to downtown only. As far as privately owned scooters, they're not restricted. So if you have children that you want to have ride scooters, they can ride on the sidewalk under adult supervision, which is also in the ordinance. They can go on bike trails. They can go on the bike lanes, or what we call sharrows in the city of Muskogee.
All right. And I guess my next question, you had mentioned, when they cross the crosswalks, they have to get off and walk them and so forth.
Yes.
So, God forbid, are there any fines out there that would be associated, or will there be tickets given, or that scooters be confiscated if they don't follow the rules? Or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, in resolution number 2883, which will be presented, we have fines of $100 for violation of any of these ordinances.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you say they're going to be restricted to downtown, does that mean you can't ride them out of downtown, or just that they will be kept and returned to downtown?
Well, we're talking about regulating, which is something we're going to amend per the mayor's comments tonight, where we restrict the commercially operated scooters to downtown.
It seems like we're trying to encourage people to use the bike trails and to run around. Would they be available to use and go on the bike trails?
Private scooters will be available at this point, and that's a discussion that we're going to have with the mayor and council to see if we restrict commercial to also the bike lanes. Right now, as this ordinance is proposed, they can be used on bike trails and lanes, but we also have a contract for instance, Bird Scooter, that may have other restrictions applied.
Now, will this ordinance also apply to like Segways and other types of scooters?
Segways are not in this ordinance. This applies only to the two-wheeled flat scooters with the handlebars.
I have been speaking with a local bike shop operator about working with him to possibly bring in additional vehicles that could be bicycles that could be rented, scooters that could be rented, Segways. Now we have golf carts that are also legal
Yes.
in Oklahoma, so we were looking at different vehicles that would possibly bring tourism downtown to lease or rent one of these vehicles and possibly operate. So I was just curious how that might apply.
Well, we have another ordinance that covers bicycles and one that covers electric scooters or electric bikes. And so that's already covered. Segways I'll discuss with Mr. Tucker and see if that will be in the other ordinance that's already there or if we amend that ordinance. This one specifically just applies to the electrical scooters.
I had a question. What is the fee?
The fee is, it's a $100 fine for violation, but the permit fee to inspect and permit the electrical scooters is $25 apiece. That's annually. And Bird Scooter at this time is proposing a fleet of 100 to start with. 100 scooters.
So if the citizen want to, say they want to jump on a scooter and they download the application, how much do it cost that citizen?
I don't know that answer until
Oh,
we
you
have our
don't know.
contract with Bird Scooters, yes. They'll propose cost to us.
Okay.
It's usually like under $1 a mile.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be recognized.
Yes, Mr. Van.
I think this is a very, very outstanding idea. I remember the first time I at OML in Oklahoma City, we got on these scooters. I can't remember if it was a Bird scooter or it was another type scooter. What made us pick Bird? Because if I remember right, one of those scooters caught a fire, if I remember right.
Yes, sir. That was in the very beginning of electrical scooters. Bird Scooter actually approached us.
Okay. But it was another scooter though too, another name brand.
There's Lime Scooters, there's Easy Ride, there are several.
Okay, but Bird scooters never never caught a fire.
I don't know that answer, but I can check that.
I wish you would, because it was one of these scooters that it did catch a fire. And also in Oklahoma City I didn't know it at the time, but we weren't supposed to be riding on the sidewalk. We were supposed to be riding like on the street. And I remember Mr. Miller just like it was yesterday. He was running kind of late for one of these little meetings, and he got on that scooter and his tire was just flying. He was doing it. So, but like I say, they're great to have. I really enjoyed the time I was in Oklahoma City. I never rode them in Tulsa, but I rode them in Oklahoma City. And I guess on them also, if somebody steals them, they got a monitor, a tracking device on them.
Yes, sir. They all have GPSs built in so that the company can monitor their location at all times.
Okay.
And for instance, if somebody picks it up and throws it in the lake, they're going to know where it is. It's their responsibility to get it, not ours.
Yeah, like I say, I'm all for it. I really enjoyed riding them.
Yeah.
I'll turn the floor back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I have one other question, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Kind of following where Alex was going, how will we define the downtown area map-wise?
We would probably take our direction from what the council's discussing tonight, but we would probably, without any further consideration, use the traditional area, which is, I believe, goes all the way to 7th, and then as far south as West Elgin. Yes, thank you. Yeah, and so we can put together a map, because what we will probably want to do, if staff is making the recommendation, is make sure that we are incorporating any of the businesses that are near downtown where someone may want to go. And so we'll need to, quite frankly, take a look at that and put together some parameters for what we would recommend to you all for adoption. However, if you have any suggestions, we're of course wide open to incorporate those.
I had one more question. Will there be charging stations as well?
Typically, there are, and those are supplied by the scooter company.
One more thing, Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes.
If we do it like on the sidewalks downtown, I hope these sidewalks are level and smooth, because if they're not, this scooter will flip you.
Well, the flatter two-wheeled scooters are less likely to flip you than, for instance, a Segway or.
I'm talking about if the sidewalk is not level and it's kind of got a, a little bad spot in it or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've
it's
seen that done in
possible.
Oklahoma City.
One of the things that we will also be discussing is whether or not we restrict, if we're going to do a commercial zone just in downtown, do we restrict sidewalk use?
Okay.
That's something that we will have to discuss and go over.
Okay. I turn the floor back over to Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs. Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
The motion passes. Item number 5.
Consider approval of Resolution Number 2883, amending Appendix A of the Muskogee City Code pertaining to annual permits and fines related to commercial electrical scooters, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Tucker,
I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Bodenhammer.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. This is resolution number 2883 that we are requesting approval for. This is the ordinance that we want the city to adopt that amends Appendix A to the city code pertaining to costs. This would be effective January 1st, 2022 at this point, and it would be a schedule of fees and charges on the city. And the schedule of fees is attached. And that's where we talk about, Ms. McGee, the $25 annual permits and fines of $100 for violation of the new city ordinances related to electrical scooters. And we would recommend that this be approved, and I'm happy to answer any questions on this.
Move for approval.
Second. Motion, second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Item number 6.
Consider approval of a contract between the City of Muskogee and Bird Rides Incorporated and setting an effective date, or take other necessary action.
Mayor Coleman.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chairman. This follows up to the item that I presented in item 4. This is the contract to basically ratify that conversation. I'm going to ask that Mr. Davis, who worked on that contract between the city and Bird, if he will come to the microphone at this time.
Thank you, Council. As the mayor has stated previously, we've been going through this process for quite a few months now. I've been working closely with Ms. Shoemaker, who is the regional manager for Bird. She handles the operations of the Bird scooters for the state of Oklahoma. There's 13 communities within Oklahoma that have the Bird scooters. 6 of those communities have populations less than Muskogee's. So this seems to be something that's taken off regardless of the size of the communities. And being popular as a alternate mode of transportation for people for not only for pleasure but also for business. They describe it as the last mile of transportation. So people are using this as a final source of transportation from their bus stops to their places of employment as well. Something to think of. There are some things that I'm going to be talking to Kate Shoemaker about tomorrow in regards to the contract. There's some things that we discussed about the trails. We need to get some clarification from the mayor on that. And then also we need to get some clarification on terms of establishing the GPS settings. The scooters are controlled by GPS. If a scooter goes outside of the bounds, then the scooter dies. For being outside of the bounds that have been defined. So there are some things that we need to work out on that in terms of, just based on the conversations tonight, location of the charging stations as well as the GPS settings for the areas that we've identified. I do have, based on the boundaries that we have for downtown, that would make them safe because within those boundaries, we don't have anyone accessing railroad tracks or going across any of the heavy railroad tracks that are on the outskirts of our boundaries. So that I feel good about that. But I will be bringing back, as the mayor has requested, a contract that has those remaining items well defined within the agreement for your approval. Entertain any questions you may have.
Move for approval.
Have a motion? Second?
One second. Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. Mr. Davis? Yes. I know you lived up in Tulsa quite a while. I mean, about these bird scooters. Have you ever known anybody, these scooters that catch on fire? I'm just trying to make sure we don't get the wrong scooter.
I have not heard of anything like that in Tulsa. I know the bird is in not only Tulsa, but they're in Oklahoma City, and they're also in Jinx. And but I have not seen or heard anyone talk about the scooters catching on fire. I know that, our attorney had already mentioned, in the earlier days and the earlier phases of rolling out these electric scooters, there were some issues surrounding the power cells or the batteries, but those things have been addressed with the new additions of scooters.
Okay. And one more thing that I really, like I said, besides the catching on fire part, to emphasize, citizens getting on these scooters, be careful of where you ride these scooters. Don't ride these scooters on nothing bumpy. I'm telling you, these scooters will throw you. They will throw you off of them. Seriously, if that surface is not flat, you hit a pothole, something like on the street or something like that, that thing will throw you going 25 miles an hour. Don't think it won't. But that's just something I haven't experienced myself, but I've seen it on TV, and I believe TV. It don't have to happen to me. I turn the floor back to you, Mr. Chairman.
There is an age limit, correct? Is it 18?
I believe that's correct for the commercial scooters.
A motion and second. Roll call, please.
Tracy Hoos.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Item number 7.
Recognize Doug Walton, Muskogee County Health Department, to present the recommendations of Connect Muskogee plans as recommended by the Parks and Recreation Board and Street Committee, and take other necessary action.
Mr. Walton?
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Good to be with you this evening. So just going to give you a little bit of an introduction to the kind of what got us here with these recommendations. This has come about through the AIM Infrastructure Committee, which has been meeting since the AIM process began back in 2012. And it's been before you with various recommendations and regularly provides input for the Streets Commission on various bikeway and trail projects. Working with Muskogee Transit, recognized the need to just better connect some of the places in town for folks that might want to walk or ride or have to walk or ride a bike or use public transit, and was able to pull funding together. I'm going to borrow that clicker. I don't know where it ended up. Was able to receive funding with a variety of partners. I'll show you here in just a minute. But the recommendations, hopefully you've had a chance to look over. I'm going to go through kind of an overview of each of those, but won't go into more detail than you want to have. A lot of partners that we had. Couldn't have done this without a big team effort. Actually fortunate to have several of our committee members here in the room. If y'all don't mind raising your hand or saying hi, thank you. A lot of support from city staff and nonprofit and just a ton of folks, and really fortunate that we've got so many people interested in connecting Muskogee within town. So we basically just pulled funding together. Parks had some dollars through trail improvements, and Transit had some. Our program at the Health Department, we had a little bit. NBN had some. OSU Extension, quite a bit. to hire the transportation planners. I know some of you were on council when we came before you a couple of years ago to contract with them to make some recommendations. And so, you know, we had the Trails Master Plan that was created for the city with city input and citizen input back in 2004, and it's a big plan. It recommends over 52 miles of trails and 15 miles of on-street bikeways since 2004, and we've put a lot of those together, the trails and the bikeways. Oh, I'm so sorry, that's me. I guess I got to talk faster. But not, you know, 52-mile trails is a lot. We only have about 12 right now, actually, and that's counting what we have in some of the parks. So there's a long way to go, and you can't do it all at once. And so Connect Muskogee was about coming up with some priorities. The Kimley Horn transportation planners, national experts with an office in Oklahoma City, they really helped us. They developed a website. We did surveying. This went out in the water bill for encouraging folks to take the survey and get some input. Got map comments where people were able to go online and drop pins where they'd like to see a new bus stop or sidewalk or crosswalk or trail or bike lane or whatever. And then they could like and dislike, you know, comments that others made. So I think we had nearly 200 likes of the various recommendations. And then from that came the really the final recommendations from the transportation planners. And so I know that maybe it's hard to see on the screen for sure. Hopefully you can see it on your terminals. But basically, this is showing you what's existing in the red. That's all of the trails and bikeways that are already in place. And then the gold are what are near-term improvements on streets. So those are going to be the sharrows that are going to be coming after the resurfacing and restriping, and that's some the recommendations that the AIM group has already made to the Streets Commission. And then in white on this map are the main projects. So 3 bicycle projects for corridors to improve for bicycle as well as pedestrian transportation, and then 3 trail projects. Also some recommendations for basically improving our trails, adopted trails, strengthening that program, trail ambassador program, looking at our complete streets policies and you know, making sure we're kind of moving forward with all of those, as well as doing some demonstration projects where we might try some of these recommendations out with temporary measures, you know, bollards that are, you know, removable like we do for the runs over the Columbus overpass and such. And so this is the first example of one of the corridor improvements, and this is a recommendation for a super sidewalk on 12th Street from Martin Luther King all the way to Walmart. And also the sharrows, share the road signage for bicycles so that it's just easier for folks to make that trip without being in the street. It also connects with the Centennial Trail as it moves northward on 12th, 11th Street. So with each of the street corridor improvements, there's the same format where it shows the overview of the map, it shows a cross-section of what it would look like in one or more sections, has a cost, estimated cost figure, and then just some, you know, kind of highlighted benefits and such. And then on the back side of each of the project recommendations is kind of more detail, and you can see that A, B, C, and D there where it sort of goes through different places on the first map where the A's and B's and C's show up. It's the cross-section of where those, what it would look like along that. Again, really concepts, the idea of improving this corridor. It may not end up that the sidewalk's on that side of the street or that it's, you know, 8 feet instead of 10 feet wide, or a lot of the engineering will come out once we've found funding to move forward and figure those things out. But this is about finding a way to improve transportation along this corridor for pedestrians and bicycles. And so similar recommendations along Main Street from west-south side up to Shawnee. You've got 4 different widths along that way, and so it's kind of 4 different ideas for how you handle those different widths of the road surface area from curb to curb. But basically making improvements that make it more safe and inviting for people to walk along Main Street. And I don't know how often you get to, or if you do get to walk along there, but I really recommend that you try sometime just taking a little stroll from, Max's down to the resale shops or somewhere and just see how it feels walking. It doesn't feel very safe. Traffic moves very fast, and sidewalks are, in some areas need repair. And so, doing things at bike lanes, and pedestrian crossings, mid-block crossings, things that have been proposed and that this body has actually accepted for applying for grants. ODOT's also already acknowledged approval of these kinds of ideas along Main Street. So this is just, a way to kind of put it in in print that we want to make these improvements. And then the third is the Columbus-Cincinnati corridor, so basically from 7th on the west side over to Spalding Park, trying to find a way to make it safer for folks to walk or ride over the Columbus overpass. Their recommendation was to look at the possibility of taking the median out and putting in a fire lane that goes over and just having 3 lanes instead of 4. Another possibility might be just making a wider median in the middle and letting the pedestrians and the bikes go down the middle. But that's, again, for the engineers to figure out, and really this is just about trying to find a way to make improvements for safe passage across that stretch. And then trails, 3 trail projects. Cootie Creek Trail proposed to extend from the Bark Park back to the east all the way to Gulick, falling along Cootie Creek or along the sewer line easement, and then turning there and going north with a new trail from Gulick. It would terminate right there, north end of Grandview, and going up to Robinson Park with a new trail. So basically connecting the park all the way back to the dog park and then on beyond to the Centennial Trail, but moving to the east where we don't have much trail activity. And then another trail that I mentioned, the second one, from the termination of the Cootie Creek up to Robinson Park. So that would allow people in the Grandview area to get up to the park or to get back to the trail on the west side. And then the third trail project is just what's being called Neighborhood Trail. This would be where basically Augusta tees into York Street and doesn't continue to the east. It basically only goes west of York. Mm-hmm. And there's basically an alley, an undeveloped, unplatted section where Augusta would travel on eastward, looking at putting a trail there all the way kind of down to Goff where the drainage is along back behind Goff, and maybe a green belt that would run back in those neighborhoods to connect back to the west side. A lot of different project ideas. There's no way they'll all happen at one time. It'll be one at a time as necessary funding comes available. That would be probably mostly just grants. But the new infrastructure package that U.S. Congress passed does include funding, increased funding for a lot of these types of projects. I do know. And then just transit, really a huge part of this. Improvements to public transit to make public transit more available. And so looking at extending service hours right now, 9 to 4, looking at the idea of going 6 till maybe 9 p.m. for a ride to work. Also, recommendations in here, we're trying to look at going same-day service on the curb-to-curb on demand. Was one of the recommendations, and Muskogee Transit is already implementing that, already trying their best to handle same-day service requests for curb-to-curb on-demand service. Also looking at technology and, basically where's my bus, being able to track your route so you could, enter which route you're riding and where that bus is right now. That technology is available. Also just, other ways that can help make it easier for people to reserve online and or for the scheduling on the transit side to be able to do the scheduling electronically. Right now it's still pretty manual. So a lot of different recommendations in there. One of the biggest ones, though, is the ride to work and looking at new routes that would serve the port area to the east of the turnpike, and just if that will be a combination of larger vehicles running curb to curb for folks that are on shifts without transportation. But anyhow, before this group is really just the notion of accepting these recommendations, and then it's back on us and Parks and others to find the money to make it happen.
I move for approval.
Yes, second.
We have one person signed up to speak. Does she speak before Roy?
Thank you.
Yeah, before we vote.
Usually before,
Yeah.
that's correct. A further discussion or a
Ms.
vote.
Stratton, would you come to the microphone, give us your name and address, and you have 3 minutes?
Bryn Stratton, 324 North Camden Place, Muskogee, Oklahoma, 74401. I won't take 3 minutes. I just wanted to commend Doug Walton and this committee for the efforts. I didn't get to come to all the meetings by a long shot, but the ones that I have gotten to, I was so impressed with the committee's intent to do due diligence, to make sure that citizens had plenty of opportunities to give input and looking for long-term solutions. And so I really just want to encourage the council to accept this recommendations and then for us all to really look at using this as a blueprint for prioritizing and moving forward for the community. Thank you.
Ms. Stratton, do we have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Second.
I'm going to ask that we amend the motion. I'm going to say what I think I want us to be able to do if we all agree. I think the motion, Mr. Tucker, you help me, would be to adopt the recommendations and to also include an adoption of the recommendations that the council in concert with its partners pursue funding through the new infrastructure funding that will be coming down from Congress.
You can certainly do that, Mayor.
That would be I would ask the motion in a second if we amend that.
All of my motion can be that amendment, or we can.
And I second.
Madam Chair, if I may as well, we went through our projects quickly, but this is also as part of to the extent that American Rescue Plan funds are available for outdoor recreation activities, we do intend on applying as well for these before the end of the year, including these projects in that. And that was on your attachment C earlier. So this is, but obviously applying through the upcoming availabilities through the infrastructure plan as well, should they not be funded through ARPA.
And I wanted to be clear, I thought that was necessary to be that specific because to Mayor Stratton's point, I think that we need to be certain that we work in concert to get that funding through mechanisms that we know are going to happen. We don't know what the states will be allowed to do or cities will be allowed to do with the infrastructure bill, but we do know that that money is coming. And I think it's important to note that we be very strategic about that because this is a very good plan. And I don't want to see what happens with a lot of our good plans where we don't have the resources or the foresight to put funding with them, and then we have a closet full of plans. And so that was why I asked that be done that way. So thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Miller, and thank you to those who adjusted their motion.
We have a motion
I have a motion and a second.
and a second. Roll call, please.
Tracy Hoos.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
The motion passes. Item number 8.
Consider approval of change order number 1 for package B, Water Line Interconnect Project number 2020016 to extend contract time by 45 days or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes, Madam Chairman and Committee. This item is simply a change order that extends the time on this project by 45 days. It'll put its conclusion up to the 7th of January in 2022. We expect this project to complete about then, and at that time we'll have a final payment for you, and I'll have a more detailed report on what this project actually encompassed. I will tell you, though, that when we put the new 30-inch water line in, the intent was to take the two 24-inch water lines that feed the towers on the west side of town out of service, and the interconnect project was to take the lines that connect to that 24 off and make sure that they were connected somewhere to the system. So that's what the interconnect project is. If you've been on Harris Road in the area of Country Club, you've seen them out there working. They're on Robin Lane currently, and this they've been through Bacone, through the school property. It's been a lot of water lines. But they're about to wrap this up. Again, this is no money change. This is just adding 45 days to the contract, and this is something that's contractually obligated because these are ODOT weather days that they are allowed. So recommend approval.
Okay.
And this is Cook Contracting, by the way, that's doing the project.
Move for approval.
Second. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes.
Before we see any more misinformation being thrown out there, Mike, I remember myself, personally, I went out there and looked at that 30-inch water line. That was 30 inches, right?
Yes.
That water line
This
was
is
not...
the one that went down the trail.
Right, that water line was not 64 inches.
No, it was 30.
It was a little misinformation about that being a 64-inch line, and I thought it was 30-inch, but I wanted to confirm that.
And I don't want to mislead you, Commissioner Van, that 30 is not part of what we're approving here. That's just the interconnects was due to us putting that 30 in service.
Okay. I'll turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
A motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
And it passes. Item number 9, please.
Consider approval of final payment to Cook Consulting, LLC for Port Lift Station Number 4 replacement, project number 201-8022, in the amount of $97,745.59, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes, Madam Chairman and committee, kind of pleased to start putting some of these final payments for you and wrapping some of these projects up finally. The one that's before you right now, we did do a $45 million loan, I'll remind you, that with the Oklahoma Water Resource Board several years back. And $27 million of that was in the clean water side, Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And that $27 million was to fund a bunch of sewer improvements, and one of them was to replace the lift station that was out at the Port of Muskogee. And as you can see with the picture that we have up, that's a lift station. That's a crane arm that's there to help us get into the wet well area. But this is a major improvement over the lift stations that we used to have. The old lift stations were quite dangerous, and most of their apparatus was above ground, with some of it being underground. This is mostly underground. But as you can see, the technology and the improvements are greatly needed, and it's a great improvement to our sanitary sewer system. As you know, the lift stations, the way they operate, they put the sewage under pressure and continue it to move it on to the sewer plant when gravity won't allow it to flow. And that's an electrical panel that was rebuilt as part of that project. All the punch list was developed. All the items that were recognized on the punch list were accomplished and have been inspected and approved. This is part of a $1 million project. This is the final payment for $97,745.59. Great project. Very proud of it. Recommend approval, and we'll answer any of your questions.
Move for approval.
Second. Motion and second. Any discussion?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I'll be recognized. For the citizens who don't know, Mike, could you explain in brief terms what a lift station is?
So sewage mostly runs in gravity and runs downhill, but the Muskogee's community has got hills and valleys in it when you go from the west side of town to the east side. So that gravity flow sanitary sewer line can't always work, and it'll hit a low spot. Then what we'll have to do is put it into a deep wet well area, but the sewage flow into that wet well area, we'll pick it up with big pumps, and we'll pump it up and put it under pressure, and then raise it up and then continue it on along till it can get gravity again and continue to flow. So it's just a series of putting it under pressure to keep that sanitary sewer moving till it gets to the river.
Thank you, Mike. I turn the floor back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous. Yes. Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item number 10.
Consider approval of final payment to Cook Consulting, LLC for North Side Collection System, project number 201-9021, in the amount of $69,991.95, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart?
Madam Chairman and committee, again, this is still part of that Oklahoma Water Resource Board loan, still part of the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, still part of that $27 million. That was a portion of that 45 that we borrowed to improve the sanitary sewer system. To go along with all the lift station work that we've done, we also had to replace a bunch of the sanitary sewer lines on the north side of town. That's why this project was named the North Side Collection System. This included 1,300 lineal feet of 16-inch sanitary sewer line that had to be pipe bursted and then replaced. It has 5 manholes in the project, approximately 5,000 feet of 12-inch force main, again where we put the sanitary sewer under pressure. It replaced a 27-inch gravity line that was about 2,000 lineal feet, and then included some right-of-way restoration. And the project, again, was one that Cook Construction did. That's one of the machines that they use for trenching, by the way, or actually for boring, not trenching, to actually push a pipe under the road or under the ground. But very pleased with the project. Again, recommend final payment. This was a $1.5 million total project, and the final payment due to them is $69,991.95. Again, it's been inspected, punch list has been resolved, and we do recommend approval on payment.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes.
Councilman Reynolds always teases me about Cook Construction, but Cook Construction does a good job. They do a great job.
What I like about them is when there is error or issue that we have with them, they always go back and resolve it. So, and we do watch it quite closely, but we're very pleased with their work.
Turn the floor back here, Mr. Chairman.
Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous. Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Item number 11, please.
Consider approval of final payment to Cook Consulting LLC for the Northeast Collection System, project number 201-9017, in the amount of $385,928.75, or take other necessary action.
Madam Chairman and committee, again, this is still part of that old Oklahoma Water Resource Board, still part of the $45 million loan, the $27 million Clean Water State Revolving Fund side of it. This is to improve the sanitary sewer system. And what this project did, this one actually replaced 3 pump stations. We had an old pump station at Beacon Street that gave us continual problems. I don't know if you know where the school maintenance yard is, but there was a lift station over on Beacon Street by there, and we were continually having problems with that. There was one on Keaton Street and one at Kurt's Mall, or the Kurt Singer one that we call it. We replaced all 3 of these pump stations with one, and it is now out behind Kurt's Mall. This project also had 4,000 lineal feet of 30-inch gravity sewer line. It had 2,500 lineal feet of 18-inch gravity, and it had 3,600 lineal feet of a 24-inch force main. And we're pushing the sewage way out to the north of town and then bringing it back to the south. But again, this replaced 3 failing lift stations. And just a couple of more shots, you can kind of get a visual on just how deep these holes and these lift stations have to be. That is the footing or the bottom of the actual lift station in that picture. And you can kind of get a visual on what's down in the lift station itself. And again, these are to pressurize the sewer to keep it moving when you're trying to take the sewage from the north all the way out to the south. Top shot of it, great project, have it finished. This one was actually a $5.5 million project. So altogether, these 3 projects have improved the sanitary sewer system greatly. This is a $385,928.75 final payment. Same thing, we inspected it. Everything is in order, and we recommend final payment.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds.
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Item number 12.
Consider approval of final payment to Vance Brothers Incorporated for microsurfacing Northeast Zone, project number 2020010, in the amount of $58,604.83, or take other necessary action.
Again, Madam Chairman and committee, this is another final payment, wrapping up another project, and I know Jeff and myself are both really pleased we're starting to wrap some of these up. It takes a lot of time and attention to keep these going, as well as trying to develop new projects and keep the Public Works Department running. So we're glad to see some of these final out. This was the microsurfacing on the Northeast Zone project. This was a $1.5 million project approximately. It was a little more than that, but $1.5 million. This was funded by sales tax and a foundation grant, as you well know. This, I want to remind you that on microsurfacing, that is a sealer. That is not reconstruction on streets. That's where we simply go in and put a seal coat down. So if there's some impurity in the street or some rough texture to it, sometimes that sealer goes on it and that rough texture is still there. But the street is sealed, and this is to gain us life in the street so that we can continue to maintain it for many years to come before it really has to be rebuilt. So it's a good project. A list of the streets that we did. I'll leave that up there just for a second so you can glance at it. But we were in the northeast part of town. I know you saw us over there. Been in the last 30 days doing a lot of work over there, a lot of level up work prior to that. So a whole lot of the northeast zone of Muskogee was resurfaced between the mill and overlay project and the microsurfacing project. We've got a lot of recognized for a lot of good work over in that area. That is a good example of a micro seal that went down, puts a nice good texture on the street, seals it up real good, and again extends the life of the street by, we hope, 10 to 15 more years if we can keep the drainage open on it. So this is, final payment is for $58,604.83. Again, we've gone out and punch listed it with the projects team that we now have together and our new inspector. We're out checking on these things daily. Very pleased with the work that's going on. Very pleased with the inspection that we're doing now. In all these projects, we're going to have failure. So because these aren't new reconstructions, these are rehabilitations, and when they do fail, we'll go out and fix them in-house, then it will be our responsibility. But it helps us keep the streets maintained, and I call it's like cleaning the chalkboard. It gets us back to a place where we can actually do street maintenance again. So I do recommend approval, and we'll answer any of your questions.
Move for approval.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I just want to say you guys did a great job.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Tracy Hoos.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
And the motion passes. Item number 13.
Discuss the 2022 meeting schedule for City Council, Public Works, and Finance Committees as per City Code 2-20 and Council Policy 1-2, and provide necessary direction to staff.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, this is our duty every year, just to set our schedule for next year. And so Tammy is very good at making sure we keep this going. And the staff has no recommendations for a different schedule for next year. So we would propose to continue the same schedule, but move that forward to next year. I'm happy to take any questions, but we do need to set this before the end of the year. So it's a committee now, and then we'll formally adopt any formal schedule at the council meeting next week.
Move for approval.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hoos.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor, Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
And the item passes. Item number 14, please.
Receive report on the status of the property formerly known as the Royal Casket Building and take other necessary action.
So I believe I'm going to start this off for you on the Royal Casket Building. As you guys know, it was a problem for us that we woke up to in the middle of the night not too long back. Just a little background for you. We did have to get cook out there on an emergency call to make that building safe so that we could keep Main Street open. The emergency portion of that project cost us $8,450. We then went ahead and hired Cook to go ahead and take the rest of that building down. And as we were working that out, we also decided that we would pay for the landfill expense through the city's account because we could get a pretty good rate at it. So the demo, which took the rest of the building down, was $113,147.50. So the $8,450 and the $113,147 were paid to Cook. The $53,386.93 was paid to Waste Management for the actual disposal of the material. The total of that project was $174,984.43, which we were very pleased with. We were trying to make sure we kept that under $300,000 because that was a number that was floated out there, if you remember, quite a bit. And so we were very pleased when we were able to bring that in for $174. Just a couple of pictures to remind you of what that building looked like. And the way we took it down, we used a crane and used a long reach backhoe. It was pretty neat to watch when you had the two Cook brothers out there working together in tandem. They were able to take that building down, and just to remind you, we were in fear that we were going to lose the electrical service to downtown, and we were able to take that building down and get it out of there with very minimal problems. I think it was a great city effort between the city manager, staff, PD, PublicWorks, fire, emergency management. We all came together, and I thought the project went really, really well. And when you go down there today and look, you've got green grass, and I kind of like the way the mayor put it not too long back. Our future is bright and green and coming up. So that's my portion of it. I'd answer any questions, but I think the manager or Roy may have something else.
No, Councilor McGee, you'd ask us to put this report together just on the basic status. I hope we covered most of it, but certainly if there's other questions for you or any other councilors.
Yes, and I want to thank you for putting that together. And also, could you tell us, since the city has taken on the expense of the $174,000, can you explain how that works as well on the backside of that, please?
Yeah, so in general, what we would do is send a bill to the property owner. It's not the city's responsibility to take care of people's private property. It's their responsibility. When we have to do demolition, that duty falls to them. Mr. Tucker's office has been in contact with their counsel, their legal representation, in discussing how they might choose to go about settling that. I believe Mr. Tucker may have additional information he wants to pass on in regard to that.
Well, the only thing I would add is, anytime there is any expenses that are due to a property based upon the way that it is held, we've, as Mr. Miller says, we send them a bill, but if it's unpaid, then we file it as a lien on the property, and it's collectible just in the same way that ad valorem taxes are. And so if it is certified onto the tax roll, then nothing can be disposed of. That property can't be disposed of without our lien being paid. Additionally, that we do have the right to file a foreclosure action on our lien, as well as seek to file an action against the individual to recover that money. We have, because there are a number of people who have approached our economic development folks that are interested in redeveloping that property. We have reached out to counsel for the owner to see if there is any desire to simply convey the property to us so that we can get it, keep it on the tax rolls. As you all may remember from when we discussed this the first time, it was supposed to be on one of the tax sales coming up recently for unpaid taxes, but it was pulled. And so, as you heard from the owner's attorney, there is a dispute over whether they own it, or the owner owns it, or who we believe is the owner, or whether the county owns it. And so that's why we'd reached out to them to see, to ask them, is there any desire to convey the land to us so that we can move forward with working with a developer to get that land developed. Despite additional attempts, we have not heard anything from her or her attorney, and so we will continue to attempt to do that, but otherwise we'll have no option other than to foreclose on that lien or attempt to collect it through taxes. But based upon the fact that they are unpaid and had been unpaid for the last 4 years, I don't know that that's going to be. I think it's going to cost us more than we would get in return. So I think what we're attempting to do is the most beneficial and least expensive way to get done what we need to get done.
Thank you, Roy. And then one more question. Wasn't there a bond on that particular property that paid us, we were holding for a certain amount? And would that go towards this $174,000?
That bond was put on it several years ago, and that bond has already been called in for purposes of securing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Tucker, one of the things I'd like to also see us pursue is to look at a conveyance similar to what we did with the Hunts Green Space, because I do think it's better in the city's hands for development purposes. The second thing I want to mention is that I think while we are pursuing whatever the legal options are, that we need to keep it mowed because the grass is growing over there, and the last thing we want on a main corner in downtown Muskogee is an overgrown area.
Which is precisely why we've asked them to convey the property to us by quitclaim, because currently it's not our property. And so we would have to follow our traditional ordinances for tall weeds and grass. But I do take your point, Mayor, and that's why we're trying to get this moving forward.
But we can mow it in place of lien. Is that correct?
After we provide notice, that's correct.
So let's get them notified pretty quickly because the grass is already looking rough. So, thank you.
Mr.
We had a bond up for that, and then when they had the back of the building collapse, did we use part of that bond?
All of it, yes.
All of it was used?
Mhm.
There wasn't anything left over?
No.
Ms. Sherman,
Yes.
now be recognized.
Yes.
Could Bruce go back to that last photo on that picture with the grass?
He's not.
No, he's working on it.
Okay.
We're on a different PowerPoint, so he's getting that one ready to go.
6.
Okay, right there. I was at church yesterday, and a lady named Miss Carol Nunley plays our piano. She asked me, Mr. Ivory, said, I was going down Main Street, boy, that grass over there looks so pretty and green. And I said, yeah, it does. She said, well, and I told her at church yesterday, I'd find out why this grass looks so pretty and green. So I got on the phone this morning with Cook Construction, talked to a guy named Kelly. And he told me why it looked so pretty and green. What they did was they put ryegrass, and they fertilized it first and put the ryegrass down. He said the ground itself was good and good for this type of application. And when I say it looks good, when you put a moor over that, that's really going to make downtown look good. So when I get out of here tonight, she's probably not looking at us on TV tonight, but when I get out of here tonight, I'm going to tell her why that grass looks so good. You know,
All right.
so I just think I just wanted to say that, and you know, like I say, it definitely looks good. And Cook Construction, like I say, they do a wonderful job. Not only did they tear the building down and make it look good, the ground look good, but they made the grass look good too. I'll turn the floor back over to you, Ms. Sherman.
I have one more question for Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stewart, when you said the 8,900, I believe was the emergency part of that, was that when Cook came down and the two brothers brought the building down to where it was just in a safe spot?
Yes,
And then the demo was?
thereafter, yes.
So they came down there, got that equipment down there by the following morning and did all of that difficult and very dangerous work.
For
with both
$8,900.
brothers Getting it and going for under $9,000.
Yes, sir.
Wow,
That is correct.
that's huge.
Yeah, because that blew us out too. We were expecting a much larger bill.
I would say there's some local guys doing well, making sure they got their equipment downtown quickly and took care of us. And I want to point out, I agree with Ivory on Cook Construction, what they do, where Kelly was running the crane on the other side of that with the wall there. It was very likely that was going to collapse out toward the middle of the street, right toward him. And that was something else to watch that day.
You know, Justin was kept it pulled back from him.
They were doing.
And they were in radio communication, by the way.
Most people would charge us that much money just to move those 2 items of equipment down there, not to do any work. That's what it costs to move equipment down there and set it there and be prepared. That was a really nice contribution to the city that they gave for us. I believe they did pitch in and showed up when we needed it the most, there by 8 o'clock in the morning and ready to go.
You heard the term jackleg, Alex?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we definitely didn't have no jackleg contractors on that job, did we?
No, sir. They showed up on time, ready to roll, and made work.
Roy, do we not need to take any action on this? Does it just
No, we don't. And one point I wanted to clarify regarding the $60,000. We did receive all of the $60,000. Now, Mr. Beasy had leaned over and told me that not all of that was used to secure the building, that there may be some amount of money left over, but it is within our possession.
My accounting shows we've got money left over. That's why I was curious if it was going to apply towards it.
It'd be part of the lawsuit that we'll have to have, so we can certainly address as an asset.
I have one more question and I'm done. How much of that did we keep for refurbishing? Did we get quite a bit of brick out of that, Mr. Stewart?
So as they were taking that building down, most of that material was just crumbling. It was that old and that deteriorated. We were able to salvage some out of it, but not as much as we wanted. We do have a pallet of bricks that we can use, but the majority of that went to the landfill.
Thank you.
It just crumbled up as they were moving around on it, and the way they had to do it, they had to get up on the pile to pull it in, and it just crushed it.
Thank you, sir.
Item 15.
Receive report on the status of the 24th Street reconstruction project and take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
So we went ahead and had that project flown again. And Bruce, I don't know if I can start the video or if you can. So the project, as you know, is fairly well completed. From Muskogee Street going north to Martin Luther King, sidewalks in place. The only thing that we still lack on that portion of the project is the striping and some of the signage, which we won't do until the project is completed, and then we'll do that all at the same time. We did allow this portion of the road to get opened. It's being used quite a bit. And Councilor McGee, we are working with the church to address a driveway issue that you had requested. About halfway down it, I think you know where I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
So we've had it painted on the ground, and we're not going to do that through this project, by the way, because it is not part of the project, but we will do it with street forces.
Thank you.
So we'll make sure that's addressed. And when you get to Martin Luther King, that portion right there, almost all of the underground portion of it is now completed. As a matter of fact, the entire portion from Martin Luther King north to the Shawnee, almost all of the underground portion of it is together. This road is not being excavated in this portion. It's being raised. And I don't know if you know where the pile of dirt is there across from the funeral home, but that's the dirt that they're using to actually bring the road up. So it's going rather quickly. Okay. They've had some issues with some weather here lately. I'm very pleased with it. They've had a fairly well full crew on it every day. Every day I'm out there, they're working on it. This is the portion of the road, and as you can see from Military on up to Shawnee, they've got most of the gravel bed in place. But this is the portion of the road work now that goes pretty quick. So if they get the right weather, this project should be wrapping up rather soon. Pleased with the project progress since we started having meetings up here. I think that really helped. I'll answer any of your questions, but I do think it's moving along well enough. Hopefully by end of the year, we'll be up here talking about having a ceremony to open it.
Thank you, Mike.
Ms. Sherman, be recognized?
Yes.
Don't say it like that now, Ms. Sherman. Yes. Mike, I was just curious, like on the church, I know they had a few problem. Is there any other residents over there have any problems that we need to fix?
So we haven't, to my knowledge right now, I think everything's been addressed. I don't know of any that have not. But if there are, we'll be glad to go out and visit with them. And we will do that when we finalize the project, by the way. So I'm not aware of anything. I'm not getting any complaints on the project right now. Ready for it to be over, though.
I bet you are.
Just like you guys are.
Now, on the striping part of it, like, I don't know that much about striping, Mike. I know you do, because you've been doing this a long time. What's the best quality paint and striping that you can put on it?
So I don't know if you've been watching right now, Ivory, but we're actually doing a lot of painting on the east side of town. We just painted Country Club and North Street, and we're working on York. But that's a polymer that's going down. We're using a state contract that will describe the mills and thickness on how it's going to be and the amount of glass beads that will go on it to get its reflectivity.
Okay.
But that's part of the project. It calls for that. It'll look great. I think when that striping goes down, you'll be very proud of the road.
Turn the floor back over, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. Item 16, please.
Discuss and take possible action related to the creation of policies and procedures regulating the establishment of new positions, departments, or reorganization thereof for the City of Muskogee and the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority.
Mayor Coleman.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we are excited that as a city we are growing. We are growing by leaps and bounds. Sales tax revenue is up. We have businesses relocating to Muskogee. We have activities taking place that have not happened in concert in a long, long time. As many of us can appreciate, with growth comes responsibility. And so we want to be certain that we continue to work in concert with the city management staff and with the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority, that as we grow, we're all growing in concert together, sharing the same views and ideologies. We have, with regard to this item on tonight, been addressing the issue of organizational management and staffing basically through a gentleman's agreement. The city manager has always been courteous, as well as other employees, who keep us aware of what changes may be necessary in terms of reorganization and staffing. But as we continue to grow, I think we need to formalize that process more, because the gentleman's agreement that we have with one another is only as good as those of us who are here are in the seat. And so I had this conversation with Mr. Miller earlier that we want to be certain that whatever we do as a city, that we have policies that go into somewhat perpetuity, regardless as to who is the members of the council or the city manager, so that whoever holds those positions, we have formal processes in place in terms of reorganization and staffing. And to that effect, my motion would be that we require the approval of city council in the case of the city of Muskogee, or the trustees of the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority in case of the MRA, before any new positions or departments are created or organized within those entities respectively. And that would be my motion.
Second motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tracy Hoos,
Yes.
Tracy McGee,
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan,
Yes.
Alex Reynolds,
Yes.
Evelyn Hibbs,
Yes.
Jamie Stout,
Yes.
Ivory Van,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed,
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Motion passes. We have one person signed up to speak, Councilman Reynolds.
Alex Reynolds, 3900 East Hancock. A couple of things that I wanted to discuss tonight. One was the item earlier where we had the AIM program. There's a lot of wonderful projects in there. We did skip over the discussion and talking about and asking questions. I'm a little nervous of that and what some of that might mean for Main Street, and if we're going to put bike lanes down Main Street and or go to 2 lanes. So I am a little nervous about that. It is awful congested downtown, especially in the Muskogee to Court Street area, where we're doing the 4 corners. We're going to eliminate a couple of street lights, and it is kind of tight and congested in that area. So I would ask that we take a hard look at that before we actually, hopefully we'll get a lot of this money but I do want us to take a look at that before we jump in there and just start doing things. And then I do want to point out that we do have a Christmas parade this year, and we got started just a little bit late, and we have extended the deadlines on turning in the applications. And the Christmas parade will be Monday, December 20th at 6 p.m. downtown, and they have extended applications through the 10th. I'm sure they'll take one a day or two after that. We're very excited about the parade coming back and getting that rolling again. And I would encourage everyone tonight, if you would please, after the meeting, go to the Main Street Muskogee page and share their post where they're talking about extending the parade registration through December 10th. And also you can sign up and bring your application to the city clerk's office at City Hall at 229 West Muskogee. And if there's any payment with that, they can receive a check there. Also, you can see Stacy at Hattie's house Tuesday through Saturday. She can help you there as well. But I do want to remind our citizens that we are having a Christmas parade this year. We are just, the Main Street Muskogee came down Sunday. Councilor Morgan and I joined them and helped decorate down Broadway. So we're going to have the lights on this year, and hopefully the mayor will be singing for us again this year, and we'll be bringing that Christmas spirit downtown. So I do ask everyone and any of our citizens out there who are watching tonight, please go to the Main Street Muskogee social media pages and share that. We didn't get the message out as best as we had hoped so, and we are extending that. We had the holidays come up there through Thanksgiving, and we're extending that through the 10th. And there again, they may take a couple of days after that. So please share that post, and let's get that Christmas spirit going. I look forward to seeing you all on the 20th of December in downtown Muskogee. Thank you for your time.
That concludes the Public Works meeting for this evening.
We will now call to order the special call meeting for the Muskogee City Council for December 6, 2021. Roll call.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs.
Here.
Alex Reynolds. Stephanie Morgan.
Here.
Tracy McGee. Here. Tracy Hoos.
Here.
Item number 1.
Consider approval to accept the lowest bid from Maxwell Supply for MIRAFI RS 5801 15-foot by 300-foot fabric rolls in the amount of $75,000 for the Hatbox parking lot, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes, this is a product called Mirify, and it's an underlayment that will go underneath the base course. When the city manager first came to work here, we were having issues on Martin Luther King, and he was curious how we were going to resolve them, and I told him we were going to use a product that I considered magic carpet. I guess you remember that. So I have a piece of the magic carpet. I'll start it around. This is a Mirify product. When we started talking about the Hatbox parking lot, we were going to have to do some excavating. It was going to take quite a bit of extensive digging, undercutting, and then refilling. And as we got to looking at it, and Jeff and I got to talking about it, and we actually went to lunch with Greg Armstrong, who is the engineer on this project from Hub. I got to question him about maybe if we just strip the top layer off, just the grass off, put the Mirify down, and then put asphalt millings on top of it. Would that not sustain the parking for this year? And then after this year, go ahead and construct the rest of the parking lot. He was in favor of that. He said that's a great idea. He actually researched the product for us, and he's the one that found the Mirify product. So we need to get this product purchased. Unfortunately, it's $75,000, which is over our spending limits. That's why it's on the agenda tonight, to get your approval so that we can purchase it tomorrow and get it here and start getting that project underway. We still intend to utilize the county forces to help us move millings. We've got millings right now currently at our material yard, and we've got a whole lot of them out by Georgia Pacific on 45th Street. So we're going to use that Mirify. We're going to lay it down. Then we're going to come back on top of that with layers of asphalt millings, and that will be stable enough that we will be able to get the parking out there. And I understand that project, or that event is the end of February. We intend to have it done well before then, so that we can get the parking on it. And then as soon as that is completed, if any soft places or anything show up, we'll excavate those out. And then we'll continue on with the development of that parking lot as planned. That's our intent. Manager's on board with it, Jeff, the engineer, and I assume Mark is. So just need approval for purchase of the Verify.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Do we have any questions for the presenter on tonight? Do we have a motion?
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes. Item number 2.
Pursuant to Section 307, C11, and B3, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss matters pertaining to economic development, as well as the possible purchase of real property in the northwest quadrant of the city, and if necessary, take appropriate action in open session.
Do we have a motion to go into executive session? It's been moved in second. Roll call.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes, we're going to ask members of the public who are not pertaining to this item, you excuse yourself at this time while we go into executive session. We will now return from executive session. Roll call.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Jamie Stout.
Here.
Evelyn Hibbs. Alex Reynolds. Stephanie Morgan. Tracy McGee.
Here.
Tracy Hous.
Mr. Tucker.
Item 2, pursuant to Section 307C11 and B.3, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss matters pertaining to economic development, as well as the possible purchase of real property in the northwest quadrant of the city. After being briefed on the status of that potential development and the need for real property related thereto, I think an appropriate motion would be to authorize the conveyance of an offer to purchase a parcel of property in the northwest quadrant of the city within the terms discussed in executive session.
Do we have a motion to that effect?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Tracy Hous.
Yes.
Tracy McGee.
Yes.
Stephanie Morgan.
Yes.
Alex Reynolds. Evelyn Hibbs.
Yes.
Jamie Stout.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Derek Reed.
Yes.
Mayor Marlon Coleman.
Yes, the item passes. That is our last item for the evening. We are adjourned.